According to a survey conducted in the US by the Carsey Institute in 2021, about 10% of people still think the Earth is flat. That means out of every 10 people, almost one believes that we're living on a big, flat surface, not on a globe. But just take a moment and think about it. In a world where satellites are taking new pictures of our planet every day, how is it possible that some people still believe all of this is just one big lie? So is it possible that organizations like NASA have been fooling us all this time, and that all the photos and videos we've seen of our planet or the moon landing are fake? Well, stick with me until the end of this video, because in this video we're going to dive into one of the strangest and most controversial beliefs in human history: flat earthers. A lot of people think that the idea of a flat earth is just a recent internet joke. But that's not the case. This belief actually goes back thousands of years. Back in ancient times, when people didn't really understand the sky and the stars, it was only natural for them to think the earth was like a big carpet, spread out flat and level. But what's interesting is that about 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, smart people like the Greeks and Egyptians figured out the earth is round by observing the stars, the movement of the sun, and shadows. For example, an astronomer named Eratosthenes in ancient Egypt proved this with a really simple experiment. When he was visiting a city called Syene, which is today's Aswan, he noticed that on the longest day of the year, the first day of summer, known as the summer solstice, if you put a stick or a vertical pillar on the ground at noon, there would be no shadow cast by the stick on the ground. The reason for this is that the sun is directly overhead, almost perpendicular to the surface of the earth, and its rays shine straight down. When Eratosthenes returned to his home in Alexandria, he tried to repeat this experiment there around the same time. But contrary to his expectations, when he stuck the stick into the ground at noon, he saw that a shadow with an angle of about 7 degrees was cast on the ground. Then, this difference in the angle of the shadows between these two cities helped him calculate the curvature of the earth and ultimately, the circumference of the globe, leading him to conclude that the earth is round. In other words, if the earth weren't actually round, the shadow in Syene shouldn't have been any different from the shadow in Alexandria, which is quite a distance away. Or if the earth were flat, sunlight would hit the ground in parallel, and the shadows in these two cities wouldn't have any difference in angle. But because the earth is spherical, the angle of sunlight is different in the two cities. Given all this, why is it that today, in the 21st century when technology and science have advanced so much, there are still people called flat earthers who claim the earth is flat? Well, of course, they have their own beliefs and explanations too. According to flat earthers, the earth is a large flat disk. The North Pole is at the center. All around it, there's a massive ice wall, which they say is the South Pole. The sun and moon are also small and move above the flat earth like two lamps. Day and night are created because of this movement. So up to this point, you might say, okay, they've just made up their own mental model. But what about gravity? Flat earthers' answer to this is pretty strange. They have an idea called universal acceleration, or UA. They say there's no such thing as gravity. Instead, the Earth and the entire universe are moving upward with an acceleration of about 9.8 meters per second squared, or 32 feet per second squared. And this movement is what keeps us from floating in the air and makes us stick to the ground. This means that instead of the Earth, as a sphere, pulling objects toward its center, the way Newtonian gravity or general relativity describes it, this upward acceleration has replaced gravity. "9.8 meters per second squared, or 32 feet per second squared. More precisely, 32.2 feet is the acceleration due to gravity on Earth. When an object is in free fall, its speed increases by about 9.8 meters per second every second. For example, if we let go of a ball, after 1 second its speed will be 9.8 meters per second. After 2 seconds, it becomes 19.6, and it keeps increasing like that. But in the flat Earth theory, they say that instead of gravity existing, The Earth is moving upward with the same acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared, and that's why we're stuck to the ground. Let me give an example to make this clearer. Imagine we have a really big elevator and we're standing inside it. If the elevator moves upward with a high acceleration, we feel a force pressing us down to the floor. It feels like something is pulling us downward, just like the force of gravity. Flat earthers have taken this idea and applied it to the whole Earth. They say that instead of the Earth being a sphere and us being pulled toward its center by gravity, it's actually the upward acceleration of the Earth that causes this effect. But the problem is, if the Earth were really accelerating upward like that, its speed would increase very quickly and eventually reach an impossible velocity. Because if an object is constantly accelerating, it keeps getting faster and faster, and after a while, it would have to reach the speed of light. And according to the laws of physics, that's just not possible. Plus, this idea can't explain the movement of the planets, the tides of the oceans, or the flight of rockets. So, this idea is really just a strange attempt to deny gravity, and it doesn't match up with scientific facts or the observations of NASA and astronomers. And another thing that a lot of flat earthers get hung up on is, if the Earth is spinning, then why don't we feel it? I should tell you, we don't actually feel the Earth's rotation. Our bodies only sense changes in speed or acceleration, not constant motion. It's like when you're on a plane that's flying at a constant speed. So naturally, you don't feel how fast you're actually moving at all. On top of that, the Earth, the atmosphere, the oceans, and all of us are spinning together. So there's nothing for us to move against or to feel any speed relative to. The next point is also related to gravity. Now that we've gotten here, I want to tell you something cool. Let's assume the Earth is flat. So why don't we fall off the edge of the world? To answer this question, we have to go back a few centuries. Imagine sailors like Christopher Columbus. If the Earth were flat, at some point while sailing, they should have fallen off the edge. But the truth is, they were able to travel around the world and return to the exact place they started from. Then, in the 20th century, when the space age began and the Soviet Union launched the Sputnik 1 satellite into space, this satellite started orbiting the Earth. You should know that if the Earth weren't spherical, the satellite's orbital path wouldn't stay stable, and instead of orbiting the Earth, it would have crashed down. Still, flat earthers keep resisting and claim that all the photos we have of the Earth's and planet's spherical shape are just the result of filming in a studio. Just like Hollywood. On the other hand, the ancient Greeks had figured out another interesting point. You know Aristotle, right? The greatest philosopher in history. He said that during a lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow falls on the moon, and his shadow is always round. But if the Earth were flat, the shadow on the moon wouldn't always be round. For example, the shadow could be a line or an oval shape. So even back then, it was clear that the Earth must be round, and the only geometric shape with this property is a sphere. Plus, the difference in time zones also proves that the Earth is round. In one place it's noon, and the sun is in the middle of the sky. At that same moment, it's turning night in Tokyo. In New York, it's morning, and in Sydney, it's the middle of the night. This difference in time makes sense if the Earth is round and spinning, because if it were flat, everywhere would be day or night at the same time. There's another interesting experiment that also disproves the idea of a flat Earth. If you've ever stood by the sea, you've probably noticed that when a ship sails away, its body disappears from view first, and then the sails. But if the Earth were flat, you would always be able to see the whole ship, and it would just get smaller and smaller. But because the Earth is round, the curvature of its surface blocks the lower parts from view at the horizon, so only the higher parts like the sails remain visible. Eventually, the entire ship gradually disappears from sight. We see same phenomenon during sunset. Sun gradually goes below horizon, lower parts disappear first. Not suddenly smaller and smaller. But despite all this, let's suppose for a moment that the Earth really is flat. In that case, the first thing that would collapse is the atmosphere, because without gravity, air wouldn't stay on the Earth. Then the ocean would fall apart too, because there wouldn't be any gravity to hold them together. Plus, the moon wouldn't be able to orbit the Earth anymore. As a result, tides would disappear, and ultimately, all life would be wiped out very quickly. So, even on a theoretical level, the flat Earth hypothesis would cause the rapid collapse of the entire ecosystem and the planet's structure. In other words, if the Earth were really flat, our planet would turn from this beautiful, balanced sphere into an unstable flying saucer that couldn't support life at all. So why do some people still believe in this hypothesis? Well, this is where psychology and sociology come into play. Many flat earthers believe that governments and NASA are deceiving us. That's why, no matter what evidence you show them, they say it's fake, and that's exactly what's called a conspiracy theory. So when you show them a photo of Earth from space, they say, come on, that's just Photoshop. When you show them footage of the moon landing, they say it was filmed in a studio. Or even if you point out that time zone differences prove the Earth is round, they'll say, no way, the sun is just small and moving up there. Now let me share my own opinion. I think believing in a flat Earth is less about scientific conviction and more of a reaction to distrust in science and governments. When people feel like everything is a lie, they start looking for different answers, even if those answers don't make sense. But honestly, when I look at photos of Earth from the moon, when I see its shadow on the moon, when GPS shows my route so precisely, I have no doubt that the Earth is a truly beautiful sphere. Now you tell me, do you think the Earth is flat or round? In short, the story of flat earthers teaches us that even with thousands of years of scientific evidence, people can still come up with all sorts of strange and bizarre ideas. The truth doesn't always depend solely on evidence. It's also about trust, human psychology, and the stories we tell.